randomness and order, apparent opposites, yet intricately wound together in a web of unrivaled creativeness. So who is the author of this intertwined scheme of randomness and order? When Albert Einstein was questioned about the religious implications of his relativity theory, he responded with a well-known phrase. You all know it. God does not play dice with the universe. And to this day, this statement is taken as the final authority on the matter. After all, these are the words of Albert Einstein, one of the most brilliant minds of our time. It may surprise you, but I must say to you that I think that Einstein was wrong. You see, in a very real sense, God does play dice with the universe, and randomness is a key component to that process. However, hang on, because just as before, there is much, much more to the story. In fact, it's a key pivotal point. You see, I believe that God's dice are loaded. Seriously. The ultimate outcome has never, ever, ever been in question. And while such a simple explanation may seem just a little bit trite, it seems to me that this perspective makes all the difference in how our understanding of faith and science might successfully intersect. Indeed, many secular physicists who study the deepest elements of nature and have no preconceived religious inclinations will admit that the physical laws and the physical constants of our universe seem to be uniquely structured to initiate and sustain life. Sounds like intelligence to me. But what about our frame of reference here at a Christian institution of higher learning? The Bible says that the heavens declare the handiwork of God, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that we are made in the image of God. I personally believe that these statements are true. But several questions come to my mind. First of all, how did he do it? And second of all, why? And perhaps most importantly, how do I fit into the picture? First question relates to science, the how. The second and third question relate to religion, the why and the meaning and the purpose. You may have come here today thinking that I have the answers to these questions. I don't. I freely concede that I do not have all the answers. I feel that my responsibility is to simply tell you what I know. After studying the deepest levels of life for 34 years, I am sure of just one thing. The more that I learn that there is always more to learn. It goes back to the design within a design within yet another design. And so the imagery that I'd like to convey to you here is an imagery of a creator God who is beyond us. We can catch glimpses of what he's like, but the challenge is always there, and it never goes away. Ultimately, this precious gift that we call life is a deep and profound mystery. Indeed, there is an element of indeterminacy built right into the fabric of our molecules and the laws that put us together. We could talk about that in another time. In reality, as I discuss random designer with you, you will begin to see that God seems to have put most of the physical world and its development, including life itself, pretty much on autopilot. But in the most miraculous way, it appears that born of his physical creation, God has brought forth something bigger and better, a spiritual dimension. creating within us the potential to experience Him in a personal, deep, and fulfilling relationship. In summary, I suggest to you that our concept of God is indeed much too small. I, like you, see God in the order of our world. We can all see that. But in the years of studying biology at the deepest levels that we can discover, I'm here to tell you that I also see God in the disorder, standing as a bridge between hope on one hand and hopelessness on the other hand for all of humanity, and offering to us the gift and an avenue to connect with Him in a vital and personal relationship. Elizabeth Barrett Browning is a poet who has penned some words that I think have relevance to our discussion. She writes, "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit around and pick blackberries." I'm learning that if I'm ever to see the world, and indeed God Himself, as He intends me to see it, and to experience Him most fully, I must be willing to courageously look beyond scientific and religious boundaries and conventional understandings. It is clear to me that a lack of scientific understanding in the Christian community is creating unnecessary barriers to faith. My God is not in the business of creating barriers. He's in the business of breaking down barriers that would keep people from connecting with Him in belief and faith. And this is primarily, at least for the Christian community, what Random Designer is all about. Now I'd like to sort of transition. That's sort of the big picture. Now I'd like to transition for the next few minutes and talk to you a little bit about the content of Random Designer. So let's go ahead and do that. On this slide, I try to lay out the main topics that I would like to discuss in the rest of our time today and then continuing next Monday. As you can see, we've already addressed the first bullet and also to some extent the second bullet. Then I want to talk to you about the messages and goals of Random Designer. And then I want to talk to you about random design itself and how it can serve as a new paradigm for creation. Next, I want to talk to you about the distinctive audiences and the distinctive needs of those audiences. One of the things that's interesting to me is that as soon as I write Random Designer, the Christian looks at it and says, this book is for me and it doesn't address what I need. And then a secular scientist looks at it and says, this book is for me and it doesn't address what I know is true. And so the imagery here is that I am trying to speak to all of God's creation, not just Christians and not just scientists. That's what took me 4 years. It didn't take me 4 years to put the concepts together in my mind. So you get the imagery of walking down the middle of a freeway and there's traffic going both ways at 90 miles per hour, and I'm trying to find a balance point right in the middle. Next bullet deals with a new kind of Christian, choosing intelligent faith positions. We'll talk about that into the next session. I think that Christians can do much better in that arena. And then finally, putting science and faith together. How do we connect them in ways that are both credible and are done so in a way that has integrity? And then the last thing, a call to come home. What is Random Designer really about ultimately? I can summarize it this way. I told Sally this one day. We were taking a walk, my wife, and I said, it's really ironic, you know. I've spent 4 years writing this book, and one of the main messages that I will convey for the person who really understands what I'm saying is that most of the things that I talk about in this book are not worth talking about very much. So the whole first half of the book lays a foundation so that we can get